your mind.
Good evening and welcome to Open Your Mind Internet Radio. You have myself, Alan James.
And you have myself, Stephen George. Very good evening.
Good evening. It's Sunday the 10th of March 2013 and as usual we have a packed show for you. Loads of information, great guest on. So without further ado, let's go over to communications and take it from there.
Okay, communication channels are as follow. Communication channels are as follow. We have the info at OYM. Sorry, I do apologise. I've just actually sat down and put the headphones on and I'm all over the shop. Info at OYMIreland.com for your emails throughout the show. We also have the chat facility on the website tonight if you want to log in. There's several people logged in already, so I'll say a very good evening to all of you. You can chat amongst yourselves. You can post questions and comments for our guest this evening. We do not have the guest book on the website at this moment in time because of some technical difficulties. That's right, Alan, some technical difficulties.
I didn't put it on it.
Right. So anyway, some technical difficulties, so we no guest book. You can also give us a call on the landline should you wish to pose questions to us or to our guest this evening by ringing.
Give us a call on 046 927 1212.
04692711212. If you're going to call in from outside the Republic of Ireland, it's 00353 in front of that. Alan.
Right, okay. A guest on the show tonight is Miles Johnston, and basically we're going to have loads of stuff to talk. He's going to blow your mind. We've already been talking just before the show.
And Alan's mind blew.
My mind is blown already. So just a few things, as usual, we're going to catch up on before we get into get the guest on. The bumper stickers have arrived, and they're in, and they're ready to go out. Now, I know one or two people on the chat facility. I know one person just said they had problems with PayPal. I think you're going to have a PayPal account, guys, to actually make a purchase with it. There was a facility at one time with PayPal that you could actually use your credit card and not have a PayPal account, but they seem to have taken that away for some reason. It doesn't seem to be there, so you might have to have a PayPal account. Sorry about that. But if you can set up a PayPal account and then just buy them that way, that would be fantastic.
And obviously, if anyone is trying to buy them, and if you do have a PayPal account and you are experiencing any problems or difficulties, do send us an email and just let us know exactly what the problem is, because it could be something PayPal's end or it could be something our end. Maybe an I is not dotted or a T is not crossed. But if you can send us an email just to let us know, we will see what we can do.
Yeah, that'd be great, because all the stickers are here, they're ready to go. So if you can support us for the national campaign, global campaign, I'm Awake, get them on your car and let people know, it'll be fantastic. Steve, you're going to take number 2.
That doesn't sound right, Alan. Steve's going to take a number 2. Okay. Right, the second thing on the
unscripted script.
Yes, on the unscripted script we have a big protest on Friday, March the 1st, and the Kenny being our guest of honour. We sent out a link with the video footage to our registered users.
Yeah.
Okay.
You've seen the video in Kells, remember?
I seen the protesters, and they stood outside the Headford Arms in Kells County, Meath, and they held up their signs, and they had some loud hailers, and they made some noise, and they caused a little bit of a racket. And I'd say anyone who was driving past in their car or walking past on the footpath would have seen a little bit of a to-do, to say the least. But I don't think, I have a funny feeling that maybe Mr. Kenny was probably inside, sitting down in a nice, comfortable chair, far away from the maddening crowd. He was probably enjoying a bottle of the house best champagne. I'm guessing maybe he's a champagne man. I don't know. He could have been enjoying a pint of the black stuff. Who knows? But I have a funny feeling that there was probably some ambient black background music playing, and I'd say Mr. Kenny didn't hear a word of what was going on outside. I'm sure he knew they were there, and I'm sure he didn't give a toss. On the video that was sent out during the week, Alan did send out the link. You can clearly see that the crowd are outside. They're mad as hell. Absolutely mad as hell, really. They were, and rightly so. However, and this is the bit that really peeves me, is that they, as much as they were making a lot of noise, they still didn't enter the hotel. There was a guarded presence there, but, you know, the people just kind of respected the guarded presence and stopped short of going in and dragging Mr. Kenny out and tearing him a new one. I mean, I think the way the country has gone at this moment in time, obviously all opinions expressed by me are mine and do not reflect those of OYM or any of our guests in any way, shape or form. Just want to clarify that. But I think the people, you know, the crowd was so angry. All that was stood between the crowd and Mr. Kenny was probably a couple of members of An Garda Síochána. I think, personally speaking, it would have been a great idea, and I said this to Alan during the week, for someone to, you know, if a crowd just go in, maybe bring him outside and ask him some questions, maybe hold him accountable for what's going on and demand answers. If someone happened to have a gallows there, well, you know, you could put him up on it and just see if his mood changed. I don't know, but that's just my personal opinion. And as I said before, protests are great if they achieve something, but most of the ones that the protests that go on nowadays don't seem to achieve much at all. You might get on the news if you're lucky, but then again, even if you do get on the news, as we've seen with a recent article on a BBC News broadcast, depending on who's doing the broadcast and what side of the camera they happen to be on, or what side of the troop movement, you know, or the untroop movement, you know, you can get conflicting reports there as well. As recently seen, a BBC reporter, he made a report of a crowd that were out of control, absolutely out of control, broke through barriers, and he feared for his life. And that was reported on the BBC. Someone there had a camera phone, and that was put up as well, in contrast to what the BBC reporter was actually saying. And when you're seeing the other side of the coin, it was completely different. It wasn't a mad crowd of people running all over the place causing havoc and mayhem. It was just a group of protesters walking from one end of the street to the other. But anyway, that's my little piece on that. Sorry, well, that was a little bit of a, you know, ran over there.
Bit of ad-lib there. Very good, very good. Okay, now, Ben Gilroy and Direct Democracy Ireland are going to be in the Headford Arms Hotel in Kells, County Meath, on Wednesday the 13th of March at 8 p.m. Myself and Steve will be down there, and we'll probably have a few bumper stickers with us as well. Now, we're not being biased against all the other political parties. We are more happy to advertise if they have something on, and if any of the leaders or any TDs from the other political parties want to come on to OYM, they are more than welcome.
We're an equal opportunities radio station.
Exactly. But it just so happens that nobody does want to come on apart from Direct Democracy. So what can you say? Nothing we can do about that. But the Direct Democracy are going to be in the Headford Arms Hotel this Wednesday, 8 p.m. We are going to be down there to report on what's going on. We might have a video camera, we might not. And to pass out some OYM bumper stickers as well.
Will they be free of charge, those bumper stickers?
I think they might be.
Ooh.
I think they might be.
So if you want to get one of those coveted OYM bumper stickers, get yourself down to the Headford Arms on Wednesday.
Exactly. Now you're going to tell us about Bernadette and the free tickets.
I am, yeah. We've mentioned this on a couple of shows previously, and we do have a little prize as well. But Dr. Brian Clement and Bernadette Bowen are going to be coming together for a practical guide to losing weight, increasing energy, and improving your health naturally. They're going to have a meet and greet with Dr. Clement at 6 p.m. on Tuesday, March 26th. That's 7:30 p.m. to 10 p.m. and it's in the Carlton Dublin Airport Hotel on the Old Airport Road in Clougharan in Ireland. Where's that again? That's in the Carlton Dublin Airport Hotel, Old Airport Road, Clougharan in Ireland. That's Tuesday, March 26th, 7:30 in the PM to 10 p.m. Tickets are just €35 each. If you're interested in purchasing tickets, you can just email B, that's the letter B, second letter of the alphabet, B at changesimply.com. You can also telephone Bernadette Bowen on 01845 2957. And we have a couple of tickets courtesy of Bernadette Bowen to give away as a freebie, basically. So we're going to have, is next week, I do believe we're going to have the question. We're going to be asking the question. All you have to do is ring in, and when you hear the question, phone lines will be opened, and once you hear the question and you know the answer, you'll just ring in, and first caller gets 2 tickets to go and see Bernadette and Brian Clement. Excellent, and that's a great show. I've been there. Really, really great information if you can make it. Right, okay, a chap called John Moran, who's a finance chief, says that homeowners cannot expect to stay in houses where they have no prospect of paying the mortgage.
the head of the Department of Finance has revealed in a harsh warning. So, what actually happened, the actual constitution in that statement, and what happens with the fact that the bank's being fraudulent? I mean, we had Tom Darcy on, and if the banks obtained their license fraudulently from the central bank because they lied to the central bank to get their license, that's fraud, and that's a criminal activity, and they should be reported to the police, which is what Tom is doing. So that means our loans and our mortgages and our credit cards are all null and void. Now, there was a great video on the internet by a chap called White Rabbit Trust, and he's actually talks about bringing a private prosecution against MBNA Bank and against the financial services. I'm going to be sending out the link shortly, in the next day or two, and it's going to be on the links. So if you're a registered user, you're going to get the link. Have a look at that. It's fantastic information. It's about fighting back.
I've seen a couple of his videos actually already. This is the guy with the beard.
That's right. Very good.
Very powerful stuff. I mean, he doesn't just come on and do a quick video. He actually rings these corporations, and he could be on the phone for 15, 20 minutes, half an hour, and he just gets all the information. His background is kind of, I think he's an ex-banker, if memory serves.
Financial services.
Yeah. So, I mean, he knows exactly what's going on. He knows what buttons to press and what questions to ask. He's very good.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Steve, how's your week?
Okay. I was just going to take a little swig of the water there, but I won't. My week's been fine. I just want to... I know we did ask there last week if anyone had some information in relation to vaccines, because regular listeners to the show will be aware of my little daughter, 13 weeks old, to be 14 weeks old now tomorrow, and me and my wife, we have discussed vaccines and the implications, and etc., etc., etc. I won't dwell on it, but we did ask people if they had any, people who did not have their children vaccinated, if they could send in some emails just to let us know how that went, what happened, how you were, if you had any problems like with bringing kids to school, etc. And we got a good few emails in during the week, and I have to say I was blown away by them. I passed them on to my darling dearest, and she read them as well. And I'd like to say thanks to everyone who did email in, because a lot of them, it wasn't just a 1 or 2 line email. Some people put a lot of effort and a lot of thought into it, and they were nice emails, very very positive. So yeah, big thanks to everyone for that. What else? Well, what else happened in my week? Yeah, I was talking to Alan during the week, and our government, we have to be careful what we say. I think we're going to get to that in a while, but we have to be careful about how we address the members of our government, seemingly. But this whole talk about going into people's bank accounts, if you don't pay your property tax, your household charge / property tax, then they're going to go into your bank account. They're going to, well, it's not your bank account, but we know that anyway. They're going to go into the bank account that the bank had with your name, and they're going to take money out of this account. If you're on receipt of social welfare, they're going to go in and going to take it out of your social welfare. If you don't have a bank account and you don't have social welfare, that's an interesting one, but you're working, they're going to go in and going to get it off your employer before you even see it. So Alan and I were just kind of shooting the breeze during the week and having a bit of a rant, as we do sometimes. But I mentioned this before, and I'm going to mention it again. I wonder if the banks are talking about people going into the bank account and taking your hard-earned money, to feather their nest, to line their pockets in relation to this household tax. Then imagine if everyone closed their bank account, said, listen, I don't need this bank account anymore, but you have a mortgage. Yeah, well, okay, once a month I'll go into a bank of my choice, I'll slide a few washers across the counter and I'll lodge it into that mortgage account. However, for my day-to-day needs, I'm closing my bank account. I no longer require it. It will make life difficult, because bank accounts and ATMs and all this, it makes it very very easy to do all your transactions. But you can survive without a bank account, and I think a good friend of OYM, Marcus McKeown, Marcus doesn't have a bank account. He kind of deals in cash, and he's getting along quite well. So imagine the run on the banks if everyone decided they're just going to close a bank account. It would be absolutely fantastic. I'd love to see it. I know we did speak about that. I think it was last year on another show, obviously relating to banks. But I think what is it? If you do close your bank account, they don't have to give you everything. They give you a percentage of what's in it. Isn't that right?
No, it's no. What it is they can only guarantee a certain amount of money.
Guarantee, yeah.
So
yeah.
if there's a run on the bank and you have 100,000 in, they can give you 20% of that, whatever. You know, people don't actually realise that if there's a run on the bank and you have a lot of money in there, they'll only give you a percentage of what's in your account.
Yeah.
And people don't think they're going to get it all. They won't. That's why banks don't like a run on the bank. Yeah. We need a Bank of Dave. That's what we need over
Bank
here.
of Dave?
Yeah, like
God,
not Bank of Dave, Bank on Dave. Because he couldn't say Bank of Dave, so Bank on Dave.
Okay, we'll play on words, I don't know. Mick, I just want to say a big thanks as well to Mick. Mick, you were also part of the people who I was thanking in relation to the vaccines. And yes, I'd be happy to forward on the emails to yourself. That won't be a problem. And muchas gracias for the information and for the phone call last week. I know I was listening to your show last week. You did kind of touch on vaccines, and after the show, you did give me a ring, and we had a bit of a natter. And thanks for that as well. So
good. Okay.
Yeah. Other than that, I don't know if you're going to be talking about it. I know we talked about the 2 moons in Russia. Are we going to be touching on that as well?
I'm going to talk to Miles about that.
Right.
As well.
Okay. So I won't bring that up. But yeah, we've seen the 2 moons during, or 2 suns. Sorry. The 2 suns during the week. So yeah, stay tuned. It's going to be a packed show. It's going to be great.
It's going to be good. So just a few bits and pieces.
Sorry. How's your week?
How's my week? Just a few bits and pieces before we bring Miles in. Okay, you probably heard over here in Ireland anyway. Phil Hogan, who's one of our TDs over here, said in the press that he called the press knackers. Unbelievable. He said, regarding the mainstream media, you're knackers. We'll put manners on you, says Phil. Phil Hogan's threat to our journalists, independent.ie. So the independent.ie, that's what Phil Hogan said, calls them knackers. What an insult. And he's one of our ministers. Because he went away on a jolly with his some secretary, allegedly, but she's female. You know, something got to do with that, you know?
And they printed a picture, yeah.
They printed the picture, you know? Yeah, what are you doing, Phil, with the taxpayers' money? That's what I'd like to know. Okay, and there's a man allegedly arrested because Mr. Pat Rabbit, who's our communications minister, he spelt the word rabbit, R-A-B-B-I-T, on Twitter. According to the Oxygen.ie website, he spelt the word rabbit because he thought that's how Rabbit spelt his name.
Yeah.
And would you believe, apparently, according to the Oxygen.ie website, Pat Rabbit sent the police around and arrested the guy for cyberbullying.
Yeah, we've heard that during the week. No, it's kind of alleged at the moment. We haven't had concrete proof. I mean, if anyone knows the guy, or if you happen to be listening yourself, give us a call. We'd be very interested in the story.
Yeah.
Are we doing that now?
Oh, we're going to do that when we're transferring over. Well, you can do it now.
We'll do it now.
Do a quick intro.
Okay.
So this is a.
Oh, go on.
This is just to say hello to Pat, and this is one of the songs we're going to play later, but we'll give you a taster.
Rabbit, 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 rabbit.
There we go.
Okay. So, that's one of our songs, Chas and Dave. Just so happens to have the word rabbit in it. What can we do? What can we say? Anyway, and that was less than 4 bars, so I think we're legally we're okay there as well.
4 bars?
Yeah, okay. The other bits and pieces on the list. So the man was arrested anyway. I'd like to... Oxygen.ie is the website. Guys, if you want to check it out later, you can pop along and have a look at that. That's ridiculous. That's a fascist state now. We're not even in communism. We're in fascism. If he's sending around people, cyberbullying... I mean, the TDs have skin as thick as rhinos. So this kind of cyberbullying is just an excuse. It's an abuse of power as far as I'm concerned. That's ridiculous. He should be ashamed of himself. He has better things to be doing. He should be concentrating on the country. Anyway, so basically, what else on the list? Okay, yeah, I did print out the thing about the Constitution, and you know, it says that we can actually have a go with the government as long as we're not inciting violence or something. And
well, can we?
Yeah.
That's okay. That's good.
Yeah, something like that. Anyway, we'll crack on because things to do. Right, another program I seen during the week about geoengineering, and it said why we are complaining about the property charges in banks. Has anyone been watching what is going on in the environment? Apparently we are losing 200 species extinct every day. The Earth is in the midst of a mass extinction of life. Now, I don't know whether all this property charge and everything that's going on is a sleight of hand trick by the government to stop us taking our eye off what's happening in the environment. You know, the bees are dying. We're not seeing them. All these species are dying. They're being extinct. And it's just going to be a food scarcity, I think, is going to happen. So we have to make sure we're keeping an eye on them things as well. I think it's going to be very important to do that. It says here, scientists estimate that 150 to 200 species of plant, insect, bird and mammal become extinct every 24 hours. This is nearly 1,000 times the natural or background rate, and say many biologists, is greater than anything the world has experienced since the vanishing of the dinosaurs nearly 65 million years ago. So,
of course. Of course, as we have said, we said it last week, it's amazing, isn't it? Because if you had have just not said the first word there, which is scientists, if you had have just said, it's estimated, but when you put in that the scientists estimate, it kind of, has to be believed then. I mean, I don't know, are there 200 species going extinct every day?
Well, actually,
do we know?
This was kind of an alternative media report. It wasn't a mainstream media report.
That must be true.
This is a geoengineer who was whistleblowing.
Yeah.
Who said that this is going on and they're not telling us.
All right.
So, again, that link is going to be on the links that I'm going to send out, so you can make up your own mind when you see it, okay?
All right, so for the second coming, then Noah's not going to need an ark.
No, I think you need more
than
that.
a boat.
Okay, listen, we're going to bring in our guest now because we've so much to talk about and we have a great guest, loads of information. Good evening, Miles, how are you?
Hello, how are you doing?
Not too bad, not too bad. Miles, we have loads of stuff to talk about, and I know there's people being keen to tune in and listen to you talking, and loads of stuff we're going to go through. Now, I'll tell you now, Miles, it's very rare for me, and Steve will vouch for this, that I actually put down questions. But because I knew you were coming on, and I knew that the topics that you covered, I said, I'm going to have to put down a few questions here.
Oh my God.
For Miles, okay? So, they're just going to be stuff, general stuff, but I think we're going to really open our mind tonight on everything. And I want
just on the weather there, are you guys familiar with scalar weather engineering?
Yep.
Well, yep. I think Steve more than me. I think.
No, do you know what, when you look out and you see like the chemtrails?
The chemtrails. Yeah.
No, not chemtrails. I'm talking about right-angled clouds and a grid network set up by a scalar grid.
Oh no.
You need to look up an old geezer from the United States Army called Colonel Tom Bearden, and he's done a great deal of work on that, and he's got a great website called Shinery.com, I think it is. Anyway, it's Tom Bearden, and there's a lot of theoretical work that he's published, which is very important for an audience to understand that the physics that we're dealing with in the public domain is like 11-year-olds. It's so out of date. It's the basic equations of everything they're dealing with in electrical theory are so wrong that there is a theory available. You can look it up. It's fairly easy to read, but it's Colonel Tom Bearden, and there's a number of works and DVDs and books that they produced to illustrate how Maxwell's equations at the end of the 19th century were completely gerrymandered by J.P. Morgan and Associates, so that we'll be locked into this idea of the petrochemical industries and the industrial military complex always burning fuel and oil. We haven't needed that since we've started using electricity. That's how bad it is.
Well, we know that Tesla was testing free energy in 1902 in front
of
the White House.
Free energy. It's a misnomer to call it free energy because it puts, when you say the word free energy, you immediately put your argument into the camp of the debunkers because they can laugh at you and debunk at you then.
Well, I use that term as a genetic term to explain it for
but
just
it's
put the
like
label.
The use of alternative medicine. Alternative medicine is the original medicine that humanity used. The alternative junk that we're fed with these chemicals is the junk medicine.
Yeah. Well,
it's important that you don't immediately fall into the trap of using the wrong words. It's like the term extraterrestrial. That immediately gets you looking off planet up at the sky. That's the wrong place to look. So don't trap yourself in the first word that you say, because you immediately fall into their camp.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're going to learn all about that tonight from you, but I'll tell you what we do, Miles. Let's give us 10 minutes of your bio and your background, and then we'll jump into that.
Well, I'm a pirate radio man, or a free thought person, and so your Open Mind title is a brilliant title for your show and format. I was a UFO investigator for the Irish UFO Research Centre, which I founded up in Belfast, and I was very pleased to meet some very good guys down in Dublin way back in the 70s when there was a massive UFO wave across Ireland, which was what we later found out switching people's minds on when we called the process intelligence transfer. Now, it's very important that we understand that the ETs, or the extra-dimensionals, or whatever you want to call them, they weren't giving us ideas. They were simply saying, hello, your mind is open, you do the thinking next. And Ireland did do the thinking next, and that is why there was a massive social upheaval and change in Ireland in the 1970s, going on to the 1980s. Really, it started in the mid-70s, and that's why you had such a total change in youth culture and the whole social outlook in Ireland during that time. Now, the point is, it had started in Belfast, and I've only found this out in the last couple of years since I ended up in Terry Hooley's wonderful book, Hooligan. If you're aware of it, the rock promoter, the punk band promoter in Belfast, Good Vibrations, Terry Hooley, there was a massive opening of awareness in Belfast in the late 1960s. And I've only found this out because I was talking to Van Morrison's personal secretary, who's an American. And anyway, I won't go into the details of that, but what happened was it was shut down aggressively, and that's what brought us those terrible times which happened in the north. That was a programmed awareness shutdown, and so bringing ourselves right to the almost present day, when we ran Kiss FM on a Monaghan, which was my station, which we created to blast into Belfast out of Monaghan with a megawatt, that had vital key members from Big D, some of the early people in the pirate radio movement, or the free thought radio movement in Ireland in 1978, and also people from Radio Caroline, and some very good people in my immediate circle. And we broke Matrix, we cracked Matrix. And to understand that, there's a very good book called Ireland, Land of the Pharaohs, written by a guy in Bangor called Andrew Power. And that's the crucial link between the ancient Ireland, which is with its connections with Atlantis, and the survival of humanity after the last great catastrophe, which emerged from the islands of Western Europe, which we now call the British Isles. It emerged from Ireland and then repopulated and re-civilized Europe and joined up with those emerging from under Giza, because the whole Giza plateau is artificial, and humanity had to survive twice due to some catastrophe. And I now understand there are underground cities and towns and places where people had to live in Ireland. So the key to all this is that civilization was restarted from Ireland, or Airland, which is crucial. And I take it you've had Michael Tazarian on, have you?
We've had Michael on, yeah.
Yeah. He's got what you call a high bitrate verbiage. And the sum of Michael Tazarian's work is actually based on Andrew Power's earlier work, which is available now on the internet. But the whole point about this is that when the Illuminati started its recent revolutions, i.e. with the Irish Revolution of the battle, the so-called ceremonial ritual at the so-called Battle of the Boyne, that was designed to instigate a bipolar thought construct into Ireland, so it would never be able to come up with the new thought waves, which you guys are now doing. It would always introduce opposites in any collective thought. And that was a programmed matrix controller. Because the Illuminati started to emerge in physical form around about that time, which included the Irish Revolution, the French Revolution, and the American Revolution. And it's the American Revolution which is the one which has been sustained as America, the United States of America, is now effectively used as the resource for carrying out the Illuminati's current plans. Mm-hmm. So that's what we were doing with Kiss FM in 1988. And that we managed to get that matrix cracked, and that's why you guys have still got your free thought at the moment, but you've got to continue the work. It's very, very important.
So
I did that, and then that created Sky Television, which I've been on for 21 years. And now we're full-time with the Ammach project, which is founded by a lovely lady called Joanne Summerscales, and that's to do with mind-managed abductees and contactees. And we're getting a whack of hard data on this, and that's produced an awful lot of very serious abductees and contactees in initially where we are right now, where I am right now in England, or the British, or the Great Britain. We haven't got the personnel to expand out into a bigger domain, but we've only just returned back from the International UFO Congress, and we got some more interviews there. And I'm also, because of my UFO work, I was the producer of the Irish era Pirate Radio, which is ran at about 8 parts, and still bits are in the can. I had the wonderful honour of recording a lot of the brilliant people involved with broadcasting in Ireland from 1978 through to the initial close down in 1988, December 88. But then we continued that with Energy 106 into Belfast again from Monaghan, and that's where we linked with the ancient standing stones and energies of Ireland, set up by our great and wise ancestors, linked in specifically with St. Patrick's Chair in Well, which is very close to where we had our transmitter. And the guy there got abducted 4 times, and then we noticed a lot of the guys involved with the Irish pirates along the Irish border were actually abductees. And then that led to a targeting into Belfast to try and restart things there. And let's put it this way, there's no way you can put a megawatt into Belfast after the close down of the pirate stations unless somebody says you can do it. And we did that from 1996 to 2005.
Wow.
And I think that brings us to the present day, basically.
Well, what I want to ask you is, when did the penny drop for you? When did you realise you were working in pirate radio and you were doing your bits and pieces? When did the switch happen? When did you wake up?
The thing is that I've always called the Irish era a UFO investigation, because we were down in Dublin and we went down to a wonderful lady's house. I don't know if you know a fantastic lady called Olivia Robinson.
No, I haven't heard her, no.
She's the high priestess of ISIS, and she operates out of a wonderful place called in Clonegall called Huntington Castle.
Oh, hang on, yeah, I've actually heard of her. Now that you say
she's a brilliant lady.
Yeah.
She appears in Glastonbury every year as in the Goddesses Conference.
Yeah.
And the last time I heard of her was in crop circles. And there's a link between the Irish Pirate Radio and the awareness trigger there and crop circles. And the same basic rules apply. The basic rule of the intelligence transfer sequence is you are given the awareness, you are given the ability to open your mind and act. If you don't grab that opportunity, then if you do grab that opportunity, the exposed civilization will greatly enhance and move in leaps and bounds. If you don't, you're just shut down and thrown out, washed out, petri dish cleaned. So because Ireland did that, it technically should have assistance to maintain its positive thought and expansion, so that, in other words, the bad guys should start running.
Yeah, but is that why we're being fluoridated heavily, Miles?
Yes.
Because one of the questions...
Basically, once they got those stations shut down, they really went hell over teeth to shut down the awareness in Ireland. And one of the processes involved in that was Atlantic 352. But I got into Atlantic 352 and made sure that didn't happen.
Well, one of the questions I have on the list, I know we're going to kind of jump around a bit, but what we are beginning to hear an awful lot more of how Ireland being a focal point and how important Ireland is on a global scale.
And it always has been, because it survived the catastrophe after Atlantis. That's why St. Patrick. That's why I don't like using terms, but basically the church, probably one of the most disastrous things which has happened in humanity's history is so-called Judaic Christianity. because it has hijacked the higher awareness and goodness which is in that initial message and totally turned it against us. And one of the things it's totally not told us about is the Jinn. Now, I heard you mention earlier on the run-up that you heard about the Jinn, but the Jinn is an exposed civilization on this planet which has been greatly abused and sent into oblivion virtually. And if we're not careful, humanity is going to head exactly the same way. If we are not careful and we don't get ourselves woken up very quickly, we are now in the final stages of where humanity will be able to exist in corporeal physical form. If things are going to move as they are now announced to move in the next 30 years, humanity will not be able to reincarnate into human-type bodies. Something else will, and if not, there will be nothing left on this planet left for a corporeal civilization. The planet will be reduced to a situation where corporeal life will not survive. And that is now on track.
Well, people are saying that 2013 is going to be the year for make or break. Now, there are people waking up en masse, but what we're noticing over here in Ireland and in the UK, because we're watching the news in the UK as well, is the governments are clamping down and doing their best to shut people down, to make things worse. And if we were to look back, we went back 10 years ago, because I used to live in London when in 2000, I moved back here in 2005. I used to live not far from you, actually, in Northolt. So it's only up the road from where you are, I believe. Yeah,
that's an entrance to one of the underground bases there.
Well, Northolt Airport. Yeah, the RAF airport that's there. But now, if you look back 10 years, I was reading about this with what Dave Icke was coming out with, and I thought, I can't believe this is going to happen. I can't believe people will allow it to happen. But we fast forward 10 years, 12 years, and look what's happening. It's unbelievable what's happening. Now, I believe you can see it. The fight is going on between the people and the governments. And they're just puppets in the government doing what they're told. Mind-controlled, sociopaths, psychopaths, I don't know. What do you think is going on there, Miles?
Well, let's put it this way. David Cameron happened to play around a little village called Peasmore.
Oh, yes. Peasmore. Yeah, underground base there.
Yeah, the AL499. Now, the whole area around there, we've been monitoring. And those military bases are definitely compromised. You've also got to understand that, which I recorded in Bases 2, was a brilliant UFO researcher called Ray Wardle, who suffered some pretty terrible things. And I managed to record that in Las Vegas. But rather than go into the full story, pretty soon after that I was briefed by a Belfast remote viewer who had been fully exposed to the non-human beings which the British intelligence and other military forces are accessing. There's full compliance and interaction with these non-humans. Now, whether these non-humans come from the inner Earth, if there's such a place, or whether they come from Sirius or Alpha Centauri, they are fully engaged and involved with them in one way or another. And the particular remote viewers are also communicating with the transdimensional beings which exist with the standing stones and the ancient Earth. So there's a major connection here which we are being, shall we say, disingenuously informed on. And so we have to independently, only ourselves, don't expect a disclosure on this. There's going to be no announcement by any government about so-called aliens from Mars, or even if they did come from Mars, or planets around Mars which blew up. We have to get aware right now and become proactive in saving our existence. That's what has to happen now. And so don't expect a nanny or a mummy or a father figure in government to come down and help you. It ain't going to happen. It's gone too far. The outer walls of the Citadel have been breached. ETs or non-humans or Jinn or whatever you want to call them. And this affects the Jinn as well. They were banished, and we, as I say, are on our way to follow their domain. They themselves wish to get our domain, but all life on this planet is under threat.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to bounce around with these questions.
That's too complicated.
No, that's fine. As I say, I'm going to bounce around with the questions, but what I'm going to talk about now is you were talking about people being used for the government or the black projects they've been involved in. Now, James Casbolt is one guy that you talk about. Now, I saw the interview that he did with Richard D. Hall. And
have you seen Bases 23?
No, but I've seen that interview, and it struck me.
Seen Bases 9?
No.
Well, Bases 9 was the one he did during that Richard Hall one.
See, I didn't trust him.
Didn't trust who?
Well, I didn't get a good feeling off James Casbolt. I thought he was.
Well, you won't get a good thing off James Casbolt. James Casbolt isn't talking to you. He's talking to others who he's triggering. Things have moved on a hell of a lot since that interview, and it was with James at the International UFO Congress last week. And when I announced him on Revolution Radio, which is run by a brilliant woman called Lorian Fenton, we got over 1 million listeners as the servers right across the United States and everywhere else were switched on to listen to what he had to say. Now, the point about Michael Prince, which is his real name, is that he's a heavily mind-controlled individual, and so nothing what he says is quite what it seems. So, for instance, a simple example is, have you seen Basis 1?
No, I'm going to put my hand up. I was watching your seminars on YouTube, but I don't think they were in the base archive.
Which seminar?
It was the one that you did. It was about 2 months ago. Well, it's 2 months on the internet. You were on a platform, and you were flying through the presentation. You were trying to get as much in as you could.
Was that at Liverpool?
I don't know. I didn't get.
I haven't seen that yet.
Have you not? You were on a raised platform, and you had a PowerPoint presentation. And at the end, near the end, I think you had a problem with your microphone as well.
No, I was really annoyed about that because the audio facilities was that whole thing was a shambles, and they hadn't balanced the audio right. Nobody could hear the video clips. I was really annoyed.
Yeah.
But the point is, this whole thing, my research started with Basis 1, with a guy called Barry King, and another woman called Nicola. No, I won't call her Nicola, I'll call her Lisa. Now, the point about Barry King is, this is when I essentially switched from recording my UFO investigations on audio to video. And so this is 1994, and Barry King is a security guard, claims to be a security guard to a base called Peasmore. Now, Peasmore has got a number called AL499, and that is just north of Greenham Common, the Newbury base, on the north side of the M4, which is just west of Windsor. Right?
Yeah.
The point about the Peasmore base, cutting a long story short, Barry King's father was in British intelligence, and he was one of the leading. He was one of the search and don't destroy team of the British military at the end of World War II. Because we now know that the Nazis seem to have been involved with the British military in underground bases in the Midlands, doing some kind of space-time experimentation. Now, this is what I call a reality management system, an RMS. And if you read Tom Bearden's work, the physics gives you the ability to directly engineer space-time. Okay?
Okay.
So if the Germans were working, what Barry King's father found was a base in, I think, near Austria, or southern Germany, or near Austria, or around that region, not too far from the Czech border from Prague. Because that whole region is hot to this day, to the extent that Joanne Summerscales, who was going to give a presentation on that, was warned off it when we were in Prague last year. what they found was the Germans were messing around with donated non-humans, or what his father called strange-looking humans. Okay? Now, what the purpose of that was, they also found a strange vehicle, a strange aircraft of some kind, and my internet's suddenly taken over. Something happening here. Now, what they discovered was that what the Germans were actually doing was that they had been donated a series of non-humans during a number of so-called crashes, or shall we say donations, in the Black Forest during the 1930s. And this is where Marconi is intricately involved. And Marconi also came to Ireland during the 1930s and did certain transmissions from Ireland. And the kind of transmissions that Marconi was doing from Ireland were scalar wave transmissions. They weren't Hertzian wave transmissions. Now, the point about a Hertzian wave is it travels at the speed of light because it's an electromagnetic wave. Non-Hertzian waves or scalar waves they're not limited by the speed of light. And they're also not limited by the normal dimensional space. So whatever he was doing, he was probably following on with what Tesla was doing, because basically Tesla was basically put under house arrest. And Marconi, who was dealing with the Germans, took over his reign. And a lot of patents and a lot of so-called inventions that have been attributed to Marconi are in fact Tesla's.
That's right, yeah.
And that's only been sort of reversed in fairly recent years. But the point is, this is why Ireland is so important with transmission, and I do believe that's why I originally was allowed to do such high-power transmissions from Ireland. That's why I call myself megawatts. Only I did a megawatt.
And that's some power to push out a megawatt.
Well, it's
power.
all focused energy. It's not. We didn't have a 1 million watt transmitter, with a big fuse and a 13 amp plug.
Yeah.
But the point about this is that we're dealing with some kind of transdimensional communication and trans-temporal communication. So getting back to what Barry King's father found, he found these strange non-humans and he found a strange-looking aircraft. Unquote. He got sick. Then the Americans came in and basically took the lot off the Brits. But the purpose of these beings was that they were trying to take some kind of material from these donated beings to certain members of the concentration camps. And the concentration camps were there, A, to produce the heavy water for the German atom bomb program, which was massively successful, because the actual bombs dropped in Hiroshima, and the three bombs dropped on Japan were German bombs. And secondly, the most important thing was to try and get different genetic races and see which combination was going to work so that you could actually physically encounter and work with these so-called extraterrestrials. Because one of the problems is the auric field of an extraterrestrial, and I'm only going to, or EBE, if you want to call them extraterrestrial biological entity, is that the biogenic field that you produce and that they produce are incompatible. So when you meet the biogenic field, or the bioenergetic field produced by your life force and their life force, can be too incompatible so that both can't physically meet. So what the Germans were trying to do was to develop something which would allow humans to engage and deal with these interdimensionals or non-humans. And the point about that is, it appears that initial work was developed in England in the Boscombe Down, Porton Down, and Peasmore, Welford general area between Wiltshire and Berkshire. And that is where the programmable generated life forms were being developed, because they wanted to develop a life form which was half alien, half human, which could be compatible and controlled. Now, these things, once they got to maturity in about 3 months, went invisible and would just animate. And that was the whole point. Well, this is the whole point about these beings that they can shift to the invisibility thing, and therefore in later part of the program we can talk about ways to sort of protect yourself and see what's going on here. So it means that basically the Brits have been involved. Britain has been as some of our very good researchers in the Ammach project have found, is that the degree of mind control or mass population control has been in the works since the 1800s, for Christ's sake. And that is why the kind of stuff that was going on in Ireland to shut down the most aware and telepathic and psychic gene pool that you've got in Ireland had to happen. And that's what St. Patrick was dispatched to do, hundreds of years ago. And one of the things it had to do, these parasites had to do, was to shut down the wise and the good. And that's why right across all civilized Europe, in Russia, right going to the steppes of Siberia, and those wonderful auburn-haired mummies that you see in China, that great high knowledge of our great ancestors all had to be shut down by these sorry, I was going to call them a rude word.
Oh, no.
By these parasites.
Family show.
And that's what's so important, that we have a massive key and responsibility to switch on our higher senses. I mean, Ingo Swann, when he was able to talk about remote viewing, human beings have got 18 senses, not 5. We have 18 senses, and if we switch all of those on, we are supremely magnificent beings. And the one thing that's going on right now is that we are being shut down. These wonderful new children that are being born with enhanced DNA that's switching on, that's flowering, this wonderful flowering of humanity of these young children born today are specifically being targeted because they're overactive. The education system is specifically targeted globally to bore them to tears and to shut them down. They then become what's called hyperactive. So then they need Reptilian and other things to shut them down. And this is the destruction of the next wave of humanity. It has been announced by the Ministry of Defence only 10 days ago that with the use of genetic engineering, we will have superhumans within 30 years. I would refer immediately to the Super Soldier program and also another a television program called Madness in the Fast Lane. I don't know if you've discussed that, where super soldiers or superhumans were demonstrated in clear and open sight on that program. That's the 2 Swedish sisters who came to England from Cork. And Cork in Ireland is a massive ET facility, especially off the southwest coast, off of Bantry Bay in the Atlantic. Anyway, or some people call it New Brazil. I'm not sure if it's connected, but anyway.
Were they the 2 ladies that were on the motorway and they jumped out in front of the cars and stuff?
Yeah, they didn't jump out in front of the cars. They waited until the BBC embedded camera crew had their camera running, and then they ran straight into the truck, and then the other one into three cars.
That's right.
Run over 3 times.
Why?
That was a demonstration. Hey, look what happened. Look what we can do. That was a demonstration of superhumans in plain sight.
Wow. That's
Nothing
incredible.
can run into a 40-ton truck driving at 70 miles an hour, get hit head on, and then complain about it.
Yeah, I agree.
You can't do that.
Yeah.
The physical human body structure can't handle that. They are superhumans. They've been developed and demonstrated. And they were cleared out of the way very easily, very quickly. The woman who went down on that thing, she had her actual God, after being hit by a 40-ton truck at 80 miles an hour, 70 miles an hour, she had a sprained ankle.
Yeah.
So she couldn't get back up. But her sister, who ran straight into the traffic and got hit by a car at 80 miles an hour, wrecked its bonnet, wrecked its windscreen, got up and ran into the next car.
Yeah.
She got hit twice.
Yeah.
And then she was able to fight off 6 men or 6 people, leap over the motorway barrier with no damage to the pelvis or any part of her body, leap over that twice, and then go into the next lane of the motorway and get hit again.
Yeah, I remember the
and
program.
She was, what the, this is not trick photography. That's one embedded camera.
Yeah, I remember
Okay?
the program.
So that's an example. Now, the other thing which you might not be aware of is a website called 2045.com. That's 2045.com. That is a Russian-based website where they are stating very clearly over 5 stages, which starts in 2015, of the cyborgization of humanity using nanotechnology into the brain, into the body, so you won't have an iPhone in your hand, it will be embedded into your brain. You will be online from inside your head from 2045. That's the end of the program. That's when it will be finished.
Yeah.
So that means they are going to deny the telepathic, hyperdimensional and interdimensional true humanity by shutting them down. And just as we think we're all waking up, you'll be embedded with this nanotechnology, you'll be superhuman, you'll be able to surf the internet by just merely thinking about it. You will be collected to the hive mind of the internet, because the internet is an intelligent life form. It's alive, and it's got its own agenda, and it's full of subspace life forms, or what some people would call creatures of the matrix.
Yeah.
And I first saw one of them in the transmitters from the BBC, a black, sort of etheric black goo, and I think we've talked about that. Have you heard about the black goo?
The scuttlers. Well, I'll tell you, Miles, we've got loads of questions coming in, and I know, as I said to you before we go live, we could spend 4 or 5 hours talking about this stuff. So what we're going to try and do is we're going to go over to the questions. If you can do a quick shot answer to the questions as much as you can, because there's still questions that we have to ask you, and I know we have about 45 minutes left. No, about 50 minutes left. But
okay, I've said my bit, so I've.
Okay, because that time is going to fly by, because this information is so good. So we're going to ask you the questions. If you can do a quick shot answer as quick as you can, and then we can crack on, that'd be brilliant. So I'll pass you over to Steve, and Steve's going to be the question master.
Be the question master, okay. Miles, you're in the hot seat now. And this is a question came in it was on our own forum here from a poster called Lucid. Lucid was born at St. Thomas's Hospital, and his question is, could you ask Miles if Ammach came across any more people like Kathy Morgan and general mind control families, and if so, what are the common signs or coincidences that family has a history of I must be reading that wrong, but it says coincidences that the family have a history of manipulation or control.
Well, that's a very good question from a brilliant researcher, Kathy Morgan, is part of MK Ultra. Quick question. Twins. Check that you don't have secret history of twins. Kathy Morgan's family, were all twins. Kathy Morgan's a twin, her mother's a twin, and her mother's mother was a twin. And the twins were taken immediately at birth, which means that there has been an institutionalized mind control and human population control program embedded in the doctors and health services over at least 100 years. This must go back much further than that. Also, what blood group are you? And also, do you have any missing time? Or because, for instance, some families just keep it secret. The ability to talk about this stuff has only come out very recently. Literally in the last, without being burned as a witch or institutionally put into a mental institution, which in the United Kingdom and I think in Ireland is institutional. If you talk about this stuff, you will be sectioned. Now, because of Ammach and because of certain other things, there's a ray of hope in that. But I hope that answered that question.
Absolutely, I hope so it has. Next question from Michael. This is Michael from the TNS chat room. Michael wants to know, what if the interdimensional beings, as you spoke about earlier, are actually what used to be called demons?
Well, we have a big problem with names and nomenclature. The interdimension. Okay, have you done the Jinn at all? We covered the Jinn.
I've actually looked at that program that you did. You interviewed that lady, and she was talking about the Jinn.
I've got an update with her, and I'm actually in her book, her next book.
Yeah, and we actually did a show, and we had Tony from Synchronicity on, and we were talking about the Jinn as well. So, I don't know what, Steve, did you see that?
Well, in essence, in a nutshell, according to, the Jinn are basically everywhere everybody else's name for aliens. It's, the Jinn is known throughout all populations in the world outside Judaic Christianity. Judaic Christianity specifically would not talk about the Jinn and would not deal with it. It was written out of any knowledge or in any database that the general public in the Judaic Christian world would ever know about the Jinn. The Jinn are basically a civilization just like us. They are terrestrial. They're very old. They're just like us, and because they're just like us, the Jinn are full of really wonderful people, and they're full of real SOBs, right?
Yeah.
It's the vengeful Jinn which are attacking humanity to essentially target our life cycle, where essentially what's happening right now is when you are created as a baby in the womb, there is a point where at some period of time the sort of human being then comes into the baby. Some people believe that it's the pituitary gland, the pineal gland. When the pineal gland reaches a certain level of development, and basically the body's ready to accept a soul, that thing starts transmitting, it starts singing. Now the frequency and the signature that it sings is designed so that a human soul will then enter the baby, and the baby is then born as a human being. What's happening is that fluoride and loads of other types of chemicals which are being put into the human food chain is designed to corrupt that signal when you are having a baby. So that signal then transmits a different signal and will only accept a non-human soul. And that's how the ETs, or these other aliens, so to speak, are able to filter themselves into human society as human beings physically. That's what's going on. Now, the Jinn have found a way back into our reality, but the Jinn look down on us because we are corporeal life made of carbon. They are made of smokeless fire and don't have a physical form like we have. So they think they can do an awful lot more than we can. And according to legend, it was God, or whoever you want to call God, who created humanity, then banished the Jinn out of all existence. What's happening right now is they're finding a way back into our existence and want rid of us from this existence. And by changing the singing frequency, the signal in the pineal gland, once that process is completed, no more human souls will ever be able to be born into human babies. And humanity will therefore be banished from all corporeal physical life forever. And that's what's happening right now. And we've got one generation left to deal with that.
Wow. Okay.
That is frightening stuff.
That's frightening stuff. Okay, next question, Steve, because we'll have to crack on.
Okie dokie. Next question is from Johnny in Meath, and Johnny is wondering, does Miles know when Ireland's Independence Day is, and also what does he think of St. Patrick's Day?
Well, the thing about the Church of Rome was the Christian Celtic Church, like the Cathars, was a very wise and intelligent and perceptive church where they retained the ancient knowledge, the knowledge of the earth, the knowledge of plants and animals, the wisdom of the collective consciousness of Earth's life force. What happened was that had to be destroyed for the process of what took over so-called Church of Rome, what took that over, to completely banish and destroy any capacity for any human beings to communicate off-planet, telepathically or in any other way, to lock this planet down to a prison planet. So that that meant any wise women, any wise sages. And for instance, one of the guardians of our existence are the wonderful standing stones which stretch from Ireland right across the civilized world, the old civilized world, past Siberia and all those ancient civilizations of our past, was where this one of those standing stones, or the dolmens. They would find a dead skeleton in there. But those beings, those wise women, or those wise beings of the village or the community, voluntarily went into those structures, and they were basically, walled in, so they would not reincarnate. Their purpose was to retain and be guardian to the village, because they had to defend against something. As an incarnate spirit, they gave up their ability to reincarnate to protect the village, because what was attacking was some kind of interdimensional life force. And this is evidenced in the massive pyramid in it's not Serbia. Oh, I've just got a blank. Yeah, the Serbian pyramids. Ones in Europe, the huge ones. Anyway, the point is what they were defending with in those. Are you familiar with those pyramids?
No.
It's the Bosnian pyramids. Sorry.
Oh, the Bosnian pyramids. Yes, we've heard about them.
Okay. Well,
and
the
healing
Bosnian pyramids. What happened was they've discovered there's loads of tunnels in the Bosnian pyramids, and they're all filled with stones. What they now found out is that those tunnels were filled in from the outside in. In other words, there were people in there who backfilled those pyramids so that something outside could not get in.
Okay.
And those pyramids are still active. I think it's a 32 kilohertz scalar signal pumping out of the Bosnian pyramid, and it's coherent. It's a coherent acoustic wave. It doesn't dissipate like a vector wave. In other words, it doesn't obey the inverse square law. And that is being generated because of massive crystal technology, which is embedded in the depths of that pyramid. And they're finding that kind of stuff out right now.
Okay.
Which meant that there's some kind of gate in that pyramid which the individuals who walled themselves into that pyramid did not want some enemy to come in and find it. And that is evidenced also in the writings of Shakespeare by Francis Bacon and that lot, the Baconian Society, that there are interdimensional signatures and keys in the works of Shakespeare. And that's another whole subject, but we'll move on from there.
Okay, and is there a relation to Independence Day and Patrick's Day, which is the original question?
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, Steve.
Okay, next question from Jimmy. Jimmy's wondering, are the Jinn related to the Archons?
I think the Archons is a misnomer, and are bollocks, basically. The Archons are part of the disinformation on our past extraterrestrials. My knowledge base goes to a guy called Chris Thomas, who claims to have access directly to the Akashic record. And he describes a civilization called Valon, which is known to us physically as the Anunnaki and the Hathor. The Hathor stayed in the Himalayas, and it's very interesting that the Dalai Lama should sanction this agenda of 2045, and that is a Valon agenda. The destruction of humanity, total control, literally in your mind with nanotechnology, using very advanced nanotechnology, so that the higher hyperdimensional transuniversal knowledge base, which is open to human beings, is kept from us.
I've actually seen the videos of Chris Thomas about the Valons, and I've seen the Barry King video as well, just to say, I've seen it and what they were talking about. But over to Steve. You have another question there, Steve?
I have another question from Andrew. Andrew's wondering, Miles, if you're aware of the Spire in Dublin, O'Connell Street, and what are your thoughts on same?
The Spire?
Yeah.
is a typical Illuminati energy discharge device. And I wonder if people have noticed the massive grid of sharp diamond shards which float across the city.
No.
Well, the Spire is basically there as a major energy discharge point to basically suck the energy from. It's got two purposes. It'll either act as an antenna or act as a transmitter. The Spire is there to basically shut you down.
Yeah, we were talking about that on the show a couple of weeks ago, and we were saying that we reckon that's what that was there for, because even in London, as you know, Miles, there are these spikes and all around London in different forms and different shapes.
What they're doing is the biggest single enemy that these creatures have is Mother Nature itself, Mother Earth, the energy, the living intelligence of Earth, which everything on Earth resonates with, all life. And this is why a lot of genetically engineered stuff won't work past 3 generations, starts to fail. What they need to do is they need to re-engineer the global energy grid, and there's evidence of that for quite a while. There's a major node of that happening here in Richmond, and one of the Ammach witnesses is suffering really badly on this. And this is what all the child abuse stuff's all about in these homes. We've discovered that a lot of these care homes are over energy lines, and by causing the pain and the grief and the terror and the terrible things which are done to these children and young children, they feed that hate, anger and terror energy into the Earth's grid to poison it. And there's evidence that this is basically a major interdimensional war, because if this war here affecting us, it's going to affect all other related dimensions. So we've got a major attack on the existence of our very fabric of existence here. And that's what that's for.
Exactly. I mean, we talked about this before on the show, and for some people, all they see is the physical, and they don't realise that it's not just a physical fight, it's a spiritual, energetic fight as well.
Yes.
And there's a lot of people don't realise that, because if they can't touch it, feel it, see it, smell it, they think, oh well, it doesn't exist. And what they have to really understand quickly is that there's more going on than meets the eye than what they can see, because even, it's the classic where people turn around and go, well, if there's UFOs, why can't we see them? Well, the human eye can only see certain frequencies, and if they're in the infrared spectrum, you won't see them. And if that's alien technology...
Well, what they do is they basically only let you see them.
Yeah.
A lot of shapeshifters work on the basis that they get you to do the shapeshifting.
Yeah, you were saying that on your...
They tell you to see a human, so that's what you see. And that is why, essentially, a lot of the population is on mind controlled. You're not going to get past that right now. What you have to do is shut down the primary signals. And the primary signals are through all communication systems, no matter what they be.
Well, can I ask you a question? Surely there's a process. Now, I heard this, and I don't know how true it is, but for people who have woken up to what's going on, I mean really woken up, that they cannot, or they are very hard to control and manipulate because the fact they've woken up, the penny has dropped. Is that what you've heard?
Yes, well, basically, the way that you're going to have to survive is not do shows like this. You're going to have to just shut up, be quiet, and withdraw, because those mind-controlled zombies are going to switch back, in my opinion. And if you're going to, I think the zombie films of the 1980s or 70s are a stark indication of what is possibly we're going to face. One of the most alarming features is a thing called Gangstalking.
Yeah.
And one of the Ammach witnesses' daughter was killed by a process of Gangstalking. And there's another woman, which is on the Basis series, which is on my YouTube, Megawatts 1066, a girl called Sarah Stanger. And she mentions the term gangstalking. And gangstalking is basically a whole series of totally disconnected people all working to a similar message or agenda. They will track you no matter where you go. They'll just be there and they'll be switched on. So we have a really dangerous, insidious situation
And,
in our midst.
and this is one of the things we're doing for people who want to be tested for microchips, that we're going to offering that facility. We still have to actually check the location, but we're pretty sure it's going to be okay. Right, just a couple of questions on air list here.
Yeah, that's a brilliant thing you're doing, and the point is you can do that. I know we're getting into closing moments, but you can check these things. These implants and things are real. Now, those are the physical ones. You won't detect the non-physical ones, which are of the higher frequency domain, which aren't physical in our reality, but are still in your aura, so to speak. So you need to be aware that not all of this stuff's physical.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things we said we would do, and offer that. And we just have to catch up with timings and everything else. Steve being the new dad and all that, priorities have to take over.
I think you're doing great work by doing that. That's really positive.
Yeah, well, it's just, as I say, it's part of working with Jesse and Lars to help people. And if they feel they've been microchipped, then obviously we can scan them. And that at least puts them on.
Have you heard of the term synthetic telepathy?
Well, we were talking to one of the people who was interviewed by Ammach, and she's gangstalked and she's been surgically manipulated. And I don't know whether she has gone under the same process you've just described.
I don't know. Well, you can mention that off air if you want.
Yeah, it's a lady called, I won't mention the last name, but a lady called Jinn, who's in London.
Jinn's suffering horrendous trouble, but the trouble is they're getting her to do most of her damage to herself. You've got to be aware that it's just like once they get you spinning in a hamster wheel, they just sit back and don't do anything anymore. Yeah.
Well, Jane has been emailing us, and she's been telling us what she's been going through and showing us photographs.
Yeah, well, she's uncovered this thing in Richmond, and there's a lot of other factors involved with that. In fact, there's a care home there, which has been in the papers. I can talk about this because it's been in the papers. And there's a great deal of controversy now in the Richmond Barnes area, a very nice area, southwest London, where the energy lines meet, and where there's a tremendous amount of this child abuse going on. And as I say, the allegations are there in the newspapers where the Richmond Council has been accused or found out certain members of covering this up. So, I mean, that's a story that's about a month old now. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to, again, kind of bounce around, and I just want to go back to something that you said about James Casbolt. And you said he wasn't aiming that at me or certain people. Are you saying that the words that he's saying is activating something in somebody else?
Yes, he's told a different audience. If a commercial doesn't make sense to you, they don't care about you, right? They only care about the people that they want to target. James Casbolt's just done another 4 hours with me on Basis 23. He's been banned from virtually the entire internet because he's starting to use the race trigger words. But essentially, what he's talking about is the reunification of reptilian bloodlines from the Odin, the bloodline of Odin, which is the Germanic and Nordic god, and the Judaic reptilian shape-shifting bloodline. And that is now being united. They're now putting that together, and that is symbolized, according to Casbolt, in what the Raelian movement use, where you have the Star of David, which is the Judaic symbol of basically two tetrahedrons interfacing, and the swastika. So the Nazi use of the swastika is uniting with the Judaic symbol of Judaism, and they match perfectly. And you can see that on the Raelian website, and the Raelians are the ones who have admitted to have done human cloning. So this is what I mean by humanity, pure humanity, these wonderful children who are now being born, which are being shut down. That's species number one of humanity. Species number two is the non yet woken up ordinary humans, peas in the pod that don't sprout, so to speak. Then you have the genetically manipulated humans called the superhumans or the super soldiers, which has been admitted to by the British Ministry of Defence in the last 2 weeks. And we can expect them in the public domain within 30 years. As I say, that means they've already got them, and that's what Casbolt claims to be, one of those manipulated super soldiers. And fourthly, you're dealing with the cyborg nanotechnology downgraded versions, which will basically be an iPod in your head, and all other forms of genetic and cyborg-related nanotechnology additions, which the people behind 2045.com plan to have online as avatars in a human internet world by the year 2045. And that's in their website. And it's backed by people like the Dalai Lama.
Well, they're all coming out with, they're getting more overt with what they plan to do and what they want to do. And so we've noticed that as well. Okay, a couple of more questions. You have a question?
Just when you mentioned there about the swastika, I do have a question here on screen, Miles, which I've been kind of waiting to ask, but I was waiting for the right time. But you did mention the Nazi thing again, and this question came in from Kelt, and he's wondering, can you speak about the Vril, V-R-I-L? He said you'll know exactly what that means.
Well, the Vril mediums in the 1920s channeled a lot of information so that the Germans. Now, there's problems with the Germans. Is the Germans have been hijacked by the Jewish cabal to make them bad, so to speak. Apparently the original intention of all this was good. But, I mean, the Bavarian, I'm sidetracking, right, the Vril apparently channeled information to build a UFO, to build a flying saucer in the 1920s. And the secret society developed this, the Vril developed this as a craft in the early 1930s. But it wasn't a craft. What we understand is that it was actually some kind of gate which essentially let these guys into our reality from wherever. And that's when things went really bad. One of the last things that another colleague that I interviewed called John Irwin, who is really a part of a secret elite British military force which was fighting the Illuminati in the 1950s, and the plans for that go way back into the 20th century, if not earlier. So you have a secret force of 16. His book's called One Step Beyond the 16. Their task was to fight the Illuminati in the 1950s, and John Irwin was the last recruit pulled into the 16. And in the Middle East and Syria, they went in to recover and find and get 2 bits of technology, crystal-type technology, which is 200 years from the future, which allows the user, if you have all 6 of them, allowed the user to activate interdimensional gates and portals across the planet. And that small British military team went in and found that stuff, wiped out everybody there, got it, recovered it, and took it away. And that stopped or impeded the Illuminati's progress for a number of years. But now they've got the technology to generate completely fake projected realities. To completely manufacture successfully complete reality systems.
Which is like...
now the point about that was, just before he went in 1959, 2 massive flying saucers took off from the Syrian desert. And they were of virtually identical design to the design that the Germans were developing in 1945, which is based on the information the Vril got in the 1920s.
It's incredible. All right, there's one more follow-up question, and then we'll go on to our questions.
Okay, Miles, a follow-up to that. Kelt has a follow-up, and it's also, I'll just read out the 2 questions that came in, one from Kelt and one from Mick. Kelt says, as a follow-up, please ask about Nazi bases in Antarctica. This has to do with Vril. And Mick says, can you ask about Admiral Byrd and his claims that he found the entrance to inner Earth in the Antarctic?
Well, one of the first things that we did in the Irish UFO Research Centre was there was a brilliant man called Dr. Eric Wilkinson. I think that's the correct term. And he showed us at school colour slides of a device in the clouds firing a black energy beam which hit the ice and exploded the ice. And this was filmed with 16mm film, colour film. And he took some colour slides on his own camera. And we actually had those published in Nexus magazine, but unfortunately they're still black and white. And that showed that there was people in the Antarctica, this would have been in the 1970s, which were operating a very high level of different technology. Now, there's a spoof film out called Iron Skies, which actually shows all this stuff up in a comedial way, and they go back to the Henge in southern Germany, or in the Czech Republic, where they developed the ground testing for the flying saucers. And this allegedly was all exported through an underground seaway into central Antarctica to create a massive Nazi base there at the end of World War II. And remember that the Nazis took over Queen Maud Land, which was Norwegian territory, took the whole place over and developed it. And Admiral Byrd was sent there at the end of World War II, it is claimed, to basically take the Nazis out. Well, Admiral Byrd and the Americans were basically sent packing. And to this day, there is, again, the Americans, Britain, the so-called Allies didn't win World War II. The Germans gave them the atom bombs. They dropped it on the Japanese. Japanese realized where the atom bombs came from, realized how many more the Germans had, and basically surrendered. And while all that was happening, the Nazis went down with the real secret, the real interdimensional and the real flying saucer technology, handed them over the V1s, the V2s and all that stuff, gave them to NASA and all that, or some people call it NASA with a Z, NASA, so that the whole Apollo hoax and all this crap could then be distracting during the 1950s and 60s. I mean, when I interviewed John Lear, he had told me on camera a year ago that his father of the Learjet Corporation was the biggest single contractor to the United States military for anti-gravity technology. And that all went secret in 1957. So we have a situation where nothing we've been told about World War II is actually true or correct in a broad sense. We thought we won it, we didn't. I mean, let's face it, the good old British Empire was completely wiped out, and I think some people would have heard of the Red Book project in the United States, which had just been declassified, where the United States were going to plan to invade Canada. And in order to get out of that mess, it's claimed that Churchill gave the Americans the drug trade from China. Because the British Empire was only always financed by the opium trade. That was the main source of finance. So they got the Chinese opium trade, and so the Americans effectively took over the British Empire, and America then became the new empire. But America is actually run by the Nazis.
Yeah, well, that doesn't...
So that essentially, that's what's happening now.
Well, that we've heard, all right. We've heard that it is being controlled. Now, we have about 20 minutes left, Miles. And,
okay.
and as we said, what we would do is look at the positives.
Yes.
And look at...
I think it's very important.
Yeah, I think it's important.
We first have to be exposed to know what we're dealing with.
Yeah, definitely.
Then search for a solution to deal with that.
I totally agree. Knowledge gives you choice, you know. You have to know what's going on. Now, the couple of questions I have, before we get to that, the couple of questions I have is regarding what we've been told is might possibly happen, and that's solar flares and Project Bluebeam.
Project Bluebeam is an old project. It's very old. It's not the projection of a beam of blue light. It's more of a direct access to the mind, in the same way that synthetic telepathy works. Synthetic telepathy works with I hope there isn't too much noise there, is there? No, anyway.
It's like a juicer in the background.
Project Bluebeam was designed to make you think you're seeing something you're not. And Project Bluebeam isn't a projection into the air. It's right into your cortex of your mind. And that's what the synthetic technology, which I understand was developed by or patented by Andrija Puharic. Are you familiar with him?
No.
Andrija Puharic wrote Uri Geller's biography. Okay?
Okay, yeah.
And Andrija Puharic was, I think, in MIT, and he was linked with a cult called the Nine. All right?
Yeah.
And that's something you better find out about. It's how the American dollar was modified by certain cultists from this group called the Nine.
Okay.
I think Richard Hoagland's also in there somewhere.
So let's
I have to say, I'm not sure.
Okay.
Right?
And what about solar flares?
So the solar flare issue. There's a brilliant man called who passed away now called Thomas Van Flanderen, who developed a theory about the electric universe or the electric solar system, where there are certain times when the whole of the solar system can electrically discharge. And he claims that there have been periods of time in the past where, due to the arrival of certain comets or particles which we can enter into, that means that the relative electricity between the sun and all the other planets basically is a conductive field, allowing the solar flares to massively discharge directly to the surface of the planets. And that is what Dr. Doom, Colonel Ed Dames, is suggesting is predicted not too far from now, where there will be a sufficient plasma between the sun and us to have direct electrical discharge onto the surface in terms of massive disruption and collapse of the Earth's protective magnetic field, and allowing this direct surface irradiation of the planet. When that happens, you've got to be down at least 85 meters. If you aren't, you are literally erased. All living things you just forget. You just don't have any memory anymore.
Right. Okay.
And that is why people had to go underground to survive. But if you come out too quickly, you literally forget all your knowledge. Which means if you've got that 60-inch plasma screen in your deep underground military base and your collection of Ray Mears DVDs to remind you on how to light a fire with a bit of flint, you're going to forget. But you're also going to forget how to use your DVD player.
This has also got to do with the Meraba, which Dromvalo Melchizedek talks about.
Yes, a Merkaba. I actually saw a Merkaba, a green one, at St. Patrick's Chair and Well in Monaghan, which is, no, well actually it's not in Monaghan, I think it's in County Tyrone. And that's where we had KISS FM, our transmitter site from Alien Mountain, and the reason why St. Patrick places were called after St. Patrick, I understand, is they put all the churches on the standing stone sites. And when the Spanish invaded South America and destroyed all the old knowledge there, I mean, this is what I mean by this whatever satanic ring or cult or alien ring which took hold of the church in Rome. Everywhere they went all over the world, they destroyed all of the old knowledge. They killed everything, killed anything that knew anything about anything, destroyed it en masse globally. Wherever they went. It's the greatest single destruction of human knowledge. If that is one example of an alien invasion, that's it.
Yeah.
But anyway, the point about it is that, I think I've lost the point now. What was the question again?
Well, we were talking about the Merkaba.
Yeah. The point about St. Patrick's Chair and Well is that I actually photographed a Merkaba, a green Merkaba, actually sitting in the chair at St. Patrick's Chair and Well. Now, the other thing that's happened at St. Patrick's Chair and Well is that a second stone chair has appeared. And if anybody's able to tell me whether that's still there, but that local area, I think, is some kind of guarded gateway to an ancient civilization, which we need to talk with for some period of time.
Okay, we've got About 10, 15 minutes left.
Sorry, a Merkaba is basically the Jewish flag. If you look at the Jewish flag, Star of David, that's a two-dimensional representation of a Merkaba. It's two tetrahedrons, one inverted, rotating in sympathy with each other, where you get two tetrahedrons means two sets of three dimensions interfacing as a sort of a diamond in the center of all that, which you can then use that to, as you generate it using your own bioenergetic field and your own thought field, you can then generate that around you and go and fly to anywhere.
That's right. Well, Drumblow said you need to practice how to do that to protect yourself, or your memory will be wiped.
Yes, that's the only way to do it. Well, I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, because when you do that, you then shift out of dimension.
Yeah.
Out of this so-called dimension.
And he's obviously teaching people how to do that, so you will remember rather than forget. But let's look at the positive stuff. We've got about 10 minutes. Let's talk about.
For instance, there's a wonderful set of things you can make, which these Orgon crystals, little pyramids, where you can make out of resin and various forms of metal shavings and crystals.
I have one in front of me.
They work, but they do need cleaned. Okay.
Yeah.
And the ones we saw in the UFO Congress were very similar. Were very pretty, but basically useless. They weren't the things which would work. These are basically a passive field disruptor. So if anything toxic is coming around in your environment, or the kind of stuff that comes off, the black toxic energy which can come off these computers and things, or it's being transmitted through your radio and TV masts by these people who infest things. These things have the ability, because they put a crystal in the middle, and not all of them have crystals in the middle, but they help. If the crystal is then compressed by the resin as the resin sets, and that allows the crystal to produce an acoustic wave. And essentially that's one of the things which is powering the center of the Bosnian pyramid, where there's a huge crystal and it's surrounded by ceramic. So essentially what they've done is they've taken the crystal of, I don't know, of a particular type, I don't know what the technology behind the crystal, but by encasing it with ceramic, as the ceramic sets, it puts pressure onto the crystal and makes the crystal, that static pressure allows the crystal to produce a wave. And remember, all things on Earth are living in some way or other. So the living entity in the crystal is then allowed to produce this wave which protects the environment. Yeah. And in the Bosnian pyramid, the bacteria, the water's pure, everything in there is pure. So there's no toxic elements in there because of that field. What
you're talking about is we have him here. We had Colin on our show there, and he actually goes around and he puts gifting of Orgonite stones, and there's obviously he makes chem busters as well. And Colin sent myself and Steve an Orgonite stone, which is
there's a wonderful man who developed a lot of that technology in the 1970s and 80s called Trevor James Constable. Mm-hmm. And he has done some wonderful videos where he starts actually showing the manipulation of the ether and using these tubes which you can use as what we call cloud busters. And some of that information is in the early work of the Montauk Project books by Peter Moon. Yeah. And Peter Moon is working with Lisa, and we're doing some research in Germany about all this stuff.
Yeah, we had Colin on, and Colin was telling us all about it, and he sent us a couple of stones, and he was telling about Wilhelm Reich, who actually did
Wilhelm Reich was murdered in jail because he was able to come up with, this is a further evidence of a toxic alien civilization amongst us. Wilhelm Reich comes up with a way of healing people in a positive, wonderful way, and they throw him in jail and he dies in jail. So those devices, and you can also make smaller versions and put them near cell phone towers and tetra towers, which I think you got rid of in Ireland. Did you? But
no. The new police communication system over here is tetra.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, it's going to do them a lot more harm, but the point is that's possibly the intent by basically zapping the policemen. The policemen then end up being like zombie-controlled morons.
But Miles, you know, the funny thing is, we've said this because our background is communication. We've said this time and time again on the show about the Tetra system. We've had Barry Trower on telling us all about microwave warfare and the frequencies and everything else, and they just goes over their head. They're not interested. They don't believe it. We're conspiracy theorists. So, you know what?
That's the point. That's the point I mean, that the existing population are already hypnotized. They're not going to take it.
I know.
So you've got to be aware that
yeah.
you can't reverse that.
No, we're doing our best.
But
Okay.
anyway, I hope we can.
Okay, do you have more tips on what we can do in a positive way?
Well, I think the main thing is positive intent and eating the right foods and keeping off parasitic, toxic foods and good water. And discharging yourself, keeping yourself grounded. Because, I mean, the work I'm doing is pretty bloody dark when you're exposed to this stuff.
Yeah, no,
Be grounded, and that also means, just basically having fun and smiling.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. I said this before a long time ago, that you have to keep your energy up. And if you're on a higher vibration where your energy is high and you're happy and positive, then that keeps all the kind of negative stuff away. And that's what we have to focus on. Because if we can be like that, you notice people who are happy and outgoing, but they're happy and they're positive, aren't really, very few of them are ill. You know?
Yeah.
And this whole thing about the whole society and the property charge over here and what's happening in the UK, everything is a negative to bring us down, to bring our energy down, to make us more susceptible to getting disease and illnesses.
Yeah.
So this is why we do mention a lot about the positives and say to people, we talk about the fluoride in the water, the aspartame, the MSG, and all this stuff. And myself and Steve we're not perfect. We try and do our best. Well, I think Steve is perfect on that.
Yeah, I'd say that. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I
but
agree with you there.
we try our best to do what we can under the circumstances that we have to live with. Because let's be honest. If the money's been taken away from us and out of our pocket because of the government, it's great to be able to go down and buy fresh food every day, but that costs money. And if you don't have the money,
I don't know if you're aware. There's a wonderful series of books called Anastasia from Russia. Have you heard of them?
No, I haven't heard of them, no.
They're called The Ringing Cedars of Russia. I think that's The Ringing Cedars with Anastasia. And she's a wonderful survivor because the terrible destruction of the wise and the good of our ancestors, all those hundreds of thousands of years ago, basically stopped. Because he couldn't get past Siberia, and the survivors of that are still there. And they live with the energy of the ringing cedars, the cedar tree, because trees are energetic beings, and some trees will pull energy from the higher atmosphere, and other trees will pull energy from the ground and push it back up, and there's a cycle of this wonderful energy. But the cedar tree has got a special ability to give its bark and its wood for humanity and for all sorts of wonderful things. And when it reaches a certain level of maturity, then it will ring. And the energy will sort of ring. And if you capture that energy or are there when it happens, it can enlighten you to an immeasurable degree. And that's part of those books. There's a series of about 13 of them. But that is all about how you make wonderful plants and seeds. So, for instance, when you have the seeds, you actually lick the seeds with your mouth and put it into the ground, and then push the soil around it with your bare feet, and that communicates to the seed what you need for nutrition, and that seed will then grow and produce the plant to actually detoxify and give you health, because the plants and all the other animals and all the other trees and all sorts of things are all a symbiotic relationship with us as human beings. And that's what I was mentioning earlier about Mother Nature. The one thing that these aliens want to destroy is Mother Nature. They want to get us away from the natural food. So that means we have to bake yourself whole, eat those wonderful foods, organic foods, which is why, again, Codex Alimentarius and the American stuff is there to stop us having our own food supply at home.
Yeah.
But this is what they were doing in Russia, that the Russian economy was completely bankrupt. The whole place was falling to bits. Yet the ordinary Russian people in the countryside, by going out and making their own plants and their own source of food in their own gardens, and collectively trading, if you want a pig or something, you trade, you horse trade. And you don't need the monetary system. So you can do all that, and people should return to that in Ireland and everywhere else, and if possible, grow their own foods and actually help the foods and talk. I mean, the animals are sensitive, the plants are sensitive, they react.
Well,
so if you collectively talk with them, they will help you and you help them.
Of course. Well, this is one thing that we did talk about time banking and about going back to community and bartering. But the last question we have, Miles, before we get all your details off you, are we winning?
We won't win if we don't wake up and take pro-action. If we fall asleep and think somebody else is going to do it, we will lose. And we are now, as I say, in the last generation of the human being. The next generation will have 4 types of human. The enhanced human, which is being targeted, the beings which are lighting up, their DNA spontaneously evolving. You've got the original human, which is going to die off or be pursued and wiped out. You then got the superhumans, genetically modified humans. Then you got the cyborg humans, which are computers, cyborgs. And that is going to be within our lifetimes. It's happening now. So we have to protect those brilliant star children, the children who have got that wonderful DNA. We're going to have to protect them and keep them away from society somehow, because Reptilian and the education system is targeting them to destroy them. And so somehow, somewhere, we've got to have secret enclaves where those children and those brilliant humans can grow to maturity and do it somewhere else. Quietly. Brilliant.
Well, Miles, that's fantastic information. Unfortunately, we've reached that time. But what I'm going to do is, again, I think we're going to have a part 2, Miles, because there's so much information that we have to go through.
There's a lot of people asking for Miles.
Well, you're doing a great job, guys. My YouTube channel is Megawatts1066. The Ammach project is Ammach, AMMACH.co.uk.
Well, we're getting a lot of requests from our listeners saying, get Miles back on, get Miles back on. So I think we're going to have to do part 2, Miles, if you're up for it.
Well, just remember, it was the Irish pirates in the late 1970s that switched things on. So if you grab that opportunity, the intelligence transfer sequence will help you through if you respond positively.
The power of the Irish. Okay, I'm going to pass you over to Steve. Steve, just do a quick round up there with Miles.
Well, I think he's already done it. He's given out the YouTube channel. He's given out the web address. I mean, if there's any closing statements, Miles, that you want to maybe give us, and I'm just going to throw in a very, very quick question, and it's just a very, very, very quick one, and even a 1 or 2 sentence answer will be fine. But I just wonder what are your
basically, you have the power. You as human beings have the supreme power. Now, there are other alien races who want to wipe us out. Maybe we can talk about it, but ultimately they're scared of us, scared of what humanity could become. So the children, the young, grow up, be aware, and protect the young children away from the toxic effects of these chemicals and the so-called education system. In other words, you need private education.
Yeah. Okay, Steve has a quick question for you, very quick, yeah?
Thoughts on vaccines for kids, Miles?
All vaccines may have had positive intent, but it's abundantly clear that they are hijacking them and they're bad news. But I wouldn't want to not have a child inoculated and then find it's fallen prey to a terrible disease. But energetically, they can be programmed out of your system, and the young children will be able to do that. They'll be born with that. We've got to let enough of them through to be able to do that.
Okay, Miles, stay with us there for a minute. Okay, we're going to go over to a bit of music. We have a special dedication for our Minister Rabbit, Mr. TD. We'll be back after this.
This is Open Your Mind Radio on OYMIreland.com, PNSradio.ning.com and ICRadioNetwork.com.
Chaz and Dave and the rabbit song. Alan's has been jumping around here like a bunny. I don't know where he gets the energy from.
Like a rabbit.
Like a rabbit.
Okay,
Yes.
that was a brilliant guest, Miles. We're going to get him back on again. He's very busy. And as just to go over what Miles was saying, everybody listening to this program who are awake, regardless of what your belief is, as long as you're awake and you know what's going on, you have to go out there and educate people and wake people up. Because if we don't, we might as well just lie down and accept everything that's going to come our way. It's as simple as that. You know, so we need to stand up to what's going on and put our foot down. And that's why Ireland obviously seems to be very important in the global picture. I always thought there was something going on with Ireland because of this heavy fluoridation that we've been experiencing. And, you know, something I said before about the 4 nations that have been targeted was the Native American Indians, the Irish, the Scottish and the Africans, because we are rebels. And throughout history we've been rebels. And that's obviously one of the reasons why.
I totally agree.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But brilliant. Yeah, the interview. Somebody said there on the chat, will it go on YouTube? Yeah, we'll be doing the podcast for this, and then we'll be putting it on YouTube tomorrow.
Yeah, and also another question in there from one of the listeners on the TNS chat. Are we going to be interviewing Tom Darcy? We were supposed to have an update from Tom, but I know Tom has been kind of busy this week. Anyone who subscribes to his Facebook page will see that he was supposed to be in court, and then there was all sorts of problems and hurdles. So I'm not sure if there is really much of an update, but I think that he was supposed to be in communication with us, but I think from what Alan said to me, he hadn't actually heard back. So it's kind of, you know, there's kind of a question mark over that at the moment, so not kind of sure. But we will do our best.
We will try and get Tom back on. Basically, we had the United We Strike Marathon yesterday. I was doing the producing on that, and I was on for 1 or 2 shows, and we were hoping to get Tom on, but obviously Tom's quite busy at the moment, so we will get him on again. We'll try and get him on again and get an update after the court case, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry, I thought you were finished talking.
I was just going to say, there's on here somebody saying about why is Ireland so important. Kelt, when you play the podcast back, you'll hear actually Miles talking about why Ireland is important. You'll hear what he said. We don't really want to go through that again. For the people who are looking for the information about the 2 girls, I believe there's a YouTube post on the chat facility with that TV program with the 2 girls in it. And you can find it on YouTube anyway. I'm pretty sure it's up there.
And if you play the podcast backwards,
yeah,
won't make any sense at all.
Yeah, it'll say buy bumper stickers, buy bumper stickers.
Yes, buy your bumper stickers, get them now, 5 for a $5. Yeah, do apologise for any of the questions that we didn't get to ask, but it was kind of down to, well, obviously timing, and some of the questions that were coming up. Again, Miles had finished, speaking. I just didn't get to throw them in because the opportunity didn't present itself, like in the ones relating to the obelisks. We've seen a lot of research, Alan and I, on obelisks, and they're kind of decorative, but they serve a scary purpose as well. Ley lines and stuff like that, isn't it?
Yeah, I think one of the things at the end of the day, there was a question on TNS saying, can Miles prove, or where is his evidence? I mean, that question alone would take 4 or 5 hours. Go search the internet and do your own research. I think that's the best thing to do, like we all do. And
you mean that in the best possible taste?
I mean that in the best possible taste. We all do our research, so check it out yourself, and then use your own. Whether if it resonates with you, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's fine, no problem at all. Right, okay. Now, just a quick recap before we sign off. This Wednesday, Direct Democracy are going to be in the Headford Arms Hotel at 8 p.m. It's the 13th of March, and myself and Steve are going to be there, and we'll have a few bumper stickers to give out. And Ben is going to be on the show next week, which is Paddy's Day, and we're going to have Ben on, and we'll get an update from Ben, obviously what's going on, but we'll probably see him on the Wednesday anyway.
You'll recognise us, if anyone who does turn up to the Headford Arms, you'll recognise Alan and I. We'll be the 2 alphalas. The 2 old men, probably wearing OYM t-shirts.
Probably. But you can just take a look at the caricature on the OYM webpage and then bring that along with you as a photo fit. And then just look in the room and just 2 people like us standing together. That's us. Yeah. That's it. So next week, we have Ben on. As it's Paddy's Day, we might as well have somebody on who's Irish, and Ben can kind of tell us what's been going on that side. If there's any news, as usual, I have a load of links to send out, which I'm going to be doing tomorrow. So you can have a look at them links. If you're not registered, register. If you are having problems ordering the bumper stickers, let us know what problems you're having. Because PayPal, as I said earlier, they used to be able to order without having to have a PayPal account. But I can't find that facility on PayPal anymore. So for some reason they've obviously taken it off. Maybe. Or maybe I haven't seen it. But you also can use PayPal by making a payment to info@oymIreland.com, which is the same thing. And you can make a payment to that address. If you don't want to actually purchase it through the website, you can just make a payment through PayPal and do that. And we have all the bumper stickers here ready to go. So get them ordered while they're here, while they're hot, while we have them. 5 for 5 in Ireland, and a little bit more for UK and the rest of the world, because obviously the shipping cost is a bit more. But you know, if you can get the stickers and help us with the campaign, it's all about, as we just said, let's wake people up. Let's educate them and let them know what's going on. That's the big thing. Steve, any finishing things to say? Anything that you want to talk about?
Yeah, we're all screwed.
Well, no. I mean, I think 2012. Look, we have the property charge tax coming out this week. It's going to be coming up to us out this week. The
letters
paperwork.
out in the post, yeah.
Letters out in the post, and these bullying tactics, you know.
Well, come here. It's exactly true. I mean, what Miles said. The man speaks the truth. As far as I'm concerned, because it resonates with me, and that's kind of what we always advocate. That if it resonates with you, then you know that's good enough for you. It's all scare tactics and bully boy tactics. It really is, because I've had conversations during the week with people that I work with, and you know they're crapping themselves about letters coming in and this, that, and the other about this property tax and taking it out of your bank account and taking it out of wages. And as I just keep saying to them, when you stop being afraid and you just kind of stop, you no longer have the fear. So when you see this, all these threats and idle threats and all this, if you stop fearing it and kind of remove the fear from you, it is powerful. I mean, I've done it insofar as when I get these letters through the door, if they don't resonate with me, if I don't like them, if I don't think they're actually addressed to me, flesh and blood man, I just send them back to where they came, because it's no good to me. I don't want them. I'm not interested. And even the power of doing that after you've done it, the fear just goes away.
Excellent. Okay, so we'll see you on Wednesday if you're there. If you recognise us or you want to pop up and say hello, we'll be there, and pop over and you'll get a free sticker. So
free sticker with every point.
So take care of yourselves. If we don't see you Wednesday, we'll be talking to you next week on the show. So for myself, Alan James, take care and stay safe.
And for myself, Stephen George, as well. We'll do it all again next week. Have a great week, and hopefully see you Wednesday. Take care. Bye bye.